Good evening, everyone. Welcome to June's planning meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order. And we're going to start off with an announcement that this agenda has been amended as items 11.1 and 11.2 were removed at the request of the applicant and will be heard at a subsequent meeting. So hopefully we'll get out of here before 8:30. Is there going to get a motion to approve tonight's agenda minus 11.1 and 11.2? Oh, we got Dave McHugh and Mayor Harrison. Any issues, questions, or concerns regarding the agenda as it stands now? Seeing none. Can I get a show of hands then that we're all in agreement? Awesome, thanks. And now I need a motion to get an approval of the minutes of our last meeting. So we got McHugh and Gerald Edison, thanks. Any issues or concerns or comments needed on the minutes of the May meeting? Seeing none, show of hands in approval, please. Thank you so much. So now we're going to start public meetings as prescribed under the Planning Act. The public meetings are conducted as prescribed by Section 3413 of the Planning Act, RSO 1990, as amended for 2 zoning bylaw amendment application affecting lands in the Sydney Ward, 1 draft plan condominium application affecting lands in the Murray Ward, and 1 zoning bylaw amendment application affecting lands in the Trenton Ward. The meeting will be conducted in the following manner for each application. I will identify the application being considered. First, I will ask the planning staff to outline the application being considered, then ask if there are any members of the public who have registered in advance to attend and participate in the meeting have any questions or comments regarding the application. If there are no public comments or questions, I will ask the committee if they have any questions or comments. Once all committee questions have been addressed, the committee will consider and vote on the application. If you wish to provide comments, please state your name and address for the record prior to addressing the committee. This committee has been delegated the responsibility to conduct public meetings as prescribed under the Planning Act. A full report of the meeting's proceedings will be submitted to City Council on Wednesday, July 15th, 2026. Council will make the decision on the stated application. Anyone other than the applicant who wishes to receive further notice of Council's decision on the application must submit a written request for notice of Council's decision to the Director of Planning and Development Services. Will the Director of Planning and Development Services please advise the committee on how each of these meetings were given, how notice of each of these meetings were given? Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through to the committee. Notice of the applications being considered this evening were given in keeping with the provisions of the Planning Act, RSO 1990 as amended, by first-class mail on May 29th, 2026, and posting of signs on the subject properties on the same date. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we're going to start with, on my agenda, I got 7.1, staff report number 26-035 PD, zoning bylaw amendment application. Owner Jesse and Anna McDonald. I thought it was Anique McDonald. Watson Land Surveyors, Keith Watson is the agent, and it's a vacant land south of 2157 Walbridge Loyalist Road, file number D09S07/26. Ashley Prescott, area planner, will outline the application.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this rezoning is a condition of consent application B39/25S, which was approved by the Committee of Adjustment on December 11th, 2025. Under the consent application, the Committee of Adjustment approved the severance of a new 0.4 hectare lot for future development. The effect of this zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone the conditionally approved severed lot from the rural zone to the rural residential zone. The rezoning would bring the severed lot into conformity with the city's zoning bylaw. The comments from the Public Works, Building, and Fire Departments state no concerns. Comments from Quinte Conservation indicate no objections. No residents to date have voiced concerns about the application. The application is consistent with the provincial planning statement, the city's official plan, and maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw. This application is recommended for approval.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who have registered to attend here to speak? Seeing none. Staff, do you have any other comments? Everything's good. Any members of the public who are here in attendance have any comments on this application? No? Any members of the committee have any issues or concerns? Seeing none. So we have a mover, Mr. McHugh's seconder. And if there's no other issues or questions, can I get a show of support for this severance? Awesome. All right. Thank you very much. Next on the list, staff report number 26-036 PD, zoning bylaw amendment application. Owner is 1518106 Ontario Inc. Location is 195 Bellevue Drive. File number D09S08/26. Katie Whitehead is going to give us a description of the presentation.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of the zoning amendment is to rezone the subject property from the rural industrial zone to the service industrial zone. Presently, the property has a very limited number of uses permitted under the standard rural industrial zoning. The service industrial zone, however, permits a range of uses, including but not limited to a building supply outlet, commercial self-storage facility, and repair shop. Ultimately, expanding the permitted uses for the subject property would help to enhance the rural economy while still maintaining the rural landscape and character of the immediate area. This zoning bylaw amendment is only the first step in the development process, and as such, any future development of the property would be subject to the site plan control process to ensure proper and orderly development of the lands. Overall, the application is consistent with the provincial planning statement, the city's official plan, and maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw. This application is recommended for approval.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any members of the public here who have registered to attend? Oh, did you want to come up and comment?
No, just I'm here in support. I'm here.
Okay. The chair recognizes, I'm sorry, he's here to support the application, so awesome. Are there any members of the public here who wish to speak on this in public meeting on this application? Seeing none. Any, can I get a motion to get this on the floor? So, Mayor Harrison and J.D. Brown. Seconded. Any questions or issues from the committee? Seeing none. I got a motion to support. Everybody's in agreement. Just stick your hands up and say, yay, team. All right. So that one is successfully made it through. Next on the list, 7.3 staff report number 26-037 PD. Draft plan of condominium application. Owner is Clemensic Homes Inc. Location is 10 Hillside Meadow Drive. File number D09M02/26. And Ashley is up to bat on this one for comment from city staff.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the purpose of this application is to obtain draft plan approval for the recently constructed 29-unit apartment building at 10 Hillside Meadows Drive. This development was constructed under site plan control approval, and this application serves as a condominium conversion. The subject property is part of a rectangular block, Block 68, registered as part of the Hillside Meadows Plan of Subdivision. Block 68 will ultimately accommodate 92 condominium apartments located within 3 separate 3-story buildings fronting Hillside Meadows Drive. The Phase 3 building is nearing completion, providing 29 units over 3 stories. The site is subject to the third application for condominium conversion. At this point in the condominium approvals process, the applicant wishes to convert the 29 residential units from single ownership into condominiums that can be offered for individual sale. Some residents asked for clarification regarding the purpose of the application and change of ownership. To date, no additional public comments have been received regarding this application. Overall, the application meets the general intent of the provincial planning statement, the city's official plan, and maintains the intent of the zoning bylaw. This application is recommended for approval.
Thanks, Ashley. Are there any members of the public here that have registered in advance to speak to this? Seeing none. Any members of the public here wish to speak on this presentation? Seeing none. All right, well, the recommendation is to approve. So Mike and Zach have put the motion forward. Any questions or concerns from the committee? Seeing none, show of hands that we're all in approval. It's unanimous. Hallelujah. Next on the list, 7.4, staff report number 26-038, PD, zoning bylaw amendment application. The owner is 18143239 Ontario Inc. Agent is Sean Bouchard. The location is 7 Riverside Drive. And the file number is D09/T09/26. And Katie's going to tell us all about this application.
Through you, Mr. Chair, this application proposes to rezone the subject lands from the Service Industrial Zone to the Service Industrial Exception 14 Zone in order to permit a data center on the subject property. In addition, this application also proposes to add the definition of a data center to the City of Quinte West zoning bylaw. The applicant has indicated that they intend to renovate the existing building on site to be used as a data center, and that backup generators as well as chillers would be added to the subject property. The establishment of new data centers in communities across Canada has prompted discussions around their environmental and community impacts. Key concerns are typically centered around operational noise, particularly from cooling systems and backup generators, water usage associated with certain cooling technologies, and the large amounts of electricity required to power and maintain the facilities. In support of this application, the proponent has submitted a noise assessment. However, in reviewing this study, staff identified that residences located on Glen Miller Road had not been captured. The noise assessment has since been revised and is now under review by staff. The owner's agent has indicated that they intend to utilize a dry cooling system on site rather than using water to cool the data center. Dry cooling systems use ambient air, fans, and dry coolers in a closed-loop system to dissipate heat. Dry cooling systems are generally preferred in more modern data centers. In terms of the demand for electricity, the owner's agent has been in communication with Hydro One to discuss the existing electrical grid's capacity. An email from Hydro One dated April 24th, 2026 indicates that they have assigned the proposed facility a capacity of 8,000 kilowatts. From a land use compatibility perspective, the subject site appears to be generally well suited for the proposed use, given the industrial nature of the area and the separation between the nearest residential uses. However, the zoning bylaw amendment is only the first step in the development process. If the application were to be approved, the next step would be the submission of a site plan control application in which the technical components of this development would be reviewed in greater detail. At this time, the applicant is also working with Lower Trent Conservation Authority to determine floodplain elevations and what additional works may be needed on site to ensure proper floodproofing. Following tonight's meeting, planning staff will consider all public comments, the input of various agencies and city departments, as well as applicable planning policies, and will provide another report to this committee at a later date with a formal recommendation. And I would just add that the applicant's agent is online tonight if there are any questions.
All right, thanks. So this is a public meeting, so we're not making a decision on this tonight. So is there anyone here, members of the public, either registered or here just generally have any issues or questions? Well, we have a lineup. You have to state your name and your address.
Oh, I'm familiar.
I know.
Thank you, Chair Quinte. My name is Robert Warm. I live on Shooter Street in Trenton Ward. I am obviously here to talk about this specific data center and data centers in general. I will, I guess, provide a bit of a spoiler. I'm not absolutely no on this, but I am certainly not yes at this point. I am here to participate in what I consider the beginning of a discussion, because I don't think the number of people here, which is not very many, truly represents the interest of the public in data centers in general. I think there's a significant opposition and significant concerns, and some of them are very valid. But I do want to talk about what the potential appeal of this site is first, because I do recognize that there are potential merits to this particular proposed development. This is a large industrial facility that was built for a specific purpose with a restrictive covenant that prevents it from being used for that specific purpose. So any use of this building will require significant retrofits, expensive upgrades, and rebuilds in order to make it usable. So I recognize that if someone is coming forward to do that, it would be appealing to look at that as a consideration. I want to talk a little bit about what this particular location means. Obviously, there are concerns from the Conservation Authority, as this is, there are studies still need to be done for this particular type of cooling, or this particular type of data center. There are real concerns around noise. And there's still a study to come forward as far as like the residential areas that are close to it. And any future potential data centers would have those same concerns. Since this is an air-cooled facility, most of those fans, turbines, infrastructure would be outdoors and potentially create significant noise. Also outside are the backup generators and the fuel storage associated with them. Regardless of whether this is in a recognized floodplain, it is still a significant storage of fuel, even if it doesn't pass a certain threshold. There are legitimate concerns around that as well, and the noise caused by those backup generators when they are used and tested, because it's not just that they're used when they are needed, but they need to be tested and used to make sure that they are running at all times. I do kind of want to just go back to the reason that I was here last night quite briefly. I was here to talk about a subdivision with a unique infrastructure and a ecologically sensitive footprint. And there were significant issues and concerns and delays and problems, quite frankly, that were unforeseen. I would describe that as a big risk for a city to take on. There are certain benefits to big risks, the biggest one of being the potential tax base, the potential financial benefit. Same here. But again, this is a big bet. Data centers in general are resource heavy, and they potentially cause issues that are unforeseen. We can look to the United States and locations there that are ahead of us as far as the build out of data centers to see that they cause significant concerns. And it's quite likely that those same concerns would be here. I'm not saying anything specifically, but we have to weigh what the benefits are of this and know that whatever we think the potential negatives are, there's probably going to be more that we don't see. I just want to talk about like how this matches up with our identity, Quinte West, a natural attraction. So I don't think a lot of people look at data centers and think about it as part of a natural attraction. The natural attraction is our identity. Data centers, it's a tough fit to make that fit into that. Why are data center? Why is this location appealing to a data center? I think that's a reasonable question to ask. It might be appealing for more developers to look at this location. Water-cooled data centers could benefit from the resources that we have here. 8,000 kilowatts. I'm not going to look stupid and say what that means or make comparables, but I think it would be very useful for the public to know what that means as far as how many homes does 8,000 kilowatts power? What are the other industrial facilities that operate in Quinte West or in this region that would use 8,000 kilowatts? And what does that mean for the future as far as the required power generation? And does it need to be location specific? Would it be suitable or desired to build power plants here? Is that what we want? Yeah, so I really just want to, again, reiterate my caution that the number of people here for this public meeting do not represent the concerns around data centers generally and in this location and in this area. And I think that as it's publicized more and the discussion continues, that there will be a significant amount of feedback around this. So I think that's it for me. I thank you for your time.
All right. Thank you. Is anybody else?
Hello.
Hello?
My name is Teresa Conlon, and I've never done this before, so I think I'm supposed to say
Your
Aspen
name
Drive.
and your address? Yeah.
Okay.
Your address?
I've never been here before. No offense, I don't really want to be here. But,
Well, thanks for coming.
so, thank you. When finding out what the meeting was about, I really felt that I needed to come and speak. I haven't had time to prepare anything. I only found out this afternoon. And I came right from an appointment after work. So I beg your forgiveness for that. I would have come more prepared if I had known in advance. The irony isn't lost on me because I have been using AI and I've been teaching others to also do the same thing. And it's ironic that now my community is facing an AI data center. I've been kind of pausing my AI use and really trying to be mindful about the implications on the environment, but haven't really delved into the research as much as I would like to. I know Aaron Brockovich is doing lots of work with AI data centers in the States, and I have a lot of concern about that. And it's hard for me to believe that this is coming to my community, possibly. I appreciate that there are studies being done. I appreciate that this isn't a meeting to approve it. I feel like I'm kind of Joe Q public here right now. I've never been to a meeting before. I hope that I never need to again.
Well, don't say that.
However, well, maybe I will. I don't. Maybe this is the beginning, but I really think a lot of people in this community are so appreciative of what we have in our community, and I think an AI data center in any form is a real threat. And this is from someone who likes AI and is trying to pause a little bit and be mindful and help others learn to be mindful as well. I think it's a real mistake to jump in. I've heard that in Napanee, it was approved, the zoning was approved without perhaps as much public consultation as there should have been. That could probably be argued. But I really think the public needs to know, and I really think they need to know before the zoning happens. Again, I don't know all your processes. I don't know how this normally works. It's just I'm literally here as a concerned citizen and taxpayer who values the resources we have here. I also value AI, but I think we need to be cautious, and we have younger generations that are counting on us to make sure that we don't make a move that can jeopardize the resources that we have. So I just beg that council takes that into consideration and consults the public. I like the caution in the studies that are being done. I'm very skeptical of a dry AI center. Dry cooling would have been happening in the States if that was a really effective measure. And I agree with the former speaker that there are unforeseeable impacts on the environment and on our community. And it might be a good idea for some communities. I don't want it in my community. And that's just my gut feeling right now. Maybe I'll feel different once more studies are done, but I just felt compelled, even though I haven't articulated or mapped anything out today, to just implore you to be cautious and consult with the public, because I don't think I'll be the only one that has concerns. Thank you.
All right. So you can also attend the council meeting and make your speech, and you can also write out your concerns or objections or support for the application and send them to the planning staff, so that you have your comments are all written out fully as you wanted to express them.
Okay.
You have that ability to do that.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're most welcome. So I wondered if Mr. Bouchard, who's here, does he want to have anything to say or answer the questions or concerns brought forward so far? You're on, Mr. Bouchard.
Sure. Yeah, I sure can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, yes. So I appreciate the comments of the public. They're important comments, actually, and I'm glad they're raised. So, we specifically, picked locations like this across the country in industrial zones, strategically located, for some of the concerns that people have raised in the public considering noise. Now, we have done 2 noise studies, one which was very good, and then there was some houses that were missed on an area, so we redid it, and they also came out very, very good. So from a noise point of view, the neighbor beside me is a wire manufacturer, and the noise that's coming out of his factory would actually be above the noise that would come out of this facility. Now, in regards to the zoning change, the current zoning allows the manufacturer of electrical equipment. And so really what we're doing is we're running that electrical equipment that can be manufactured in the zoning. Now, one thing that I agree with the people that using drinking water to cool a data center is, in my opinion, a very bad idea. In Canada, because of our colder winters, dry cooled systems work very, very well. In the United States, they have a problem because a lot of the data centers are being built in very hot climates. And so the dry cooling is not very effective. And so they have to use a lot bigger fans if they try to do dry cooling in closed loop systems. And then that's why they tend to try to use water. And then that's why they're in some of the areas in the United States, they're affecting the aquifer in a very negative way. So in Canada, because of our weather, it's perfectly situated for doing dry cooled systems like what is in application here, so that we don't use any of the water at all. And it acts like a radiator, basically like your car. And so, that takes that whole issue completely off the table. The second biggest issue, which was brought up by both people, is sound, and that's been totally mitigated and meets all standards, provincial standards in regards to that. In regards to economic impact, these centers actually have a very dramatic economic impact for utilities, for taxation, for even municipalities, property tax. In this case, we're taking a derelict building in a very well situated area, and the economic impact would be about $8.8 million annually to the general economy through wages, taxation, property taxes, fees to the utility. And in regards to this particular location, the utility had a bunch of stranded power, which they are not using. And so when we come in and buy a base load from the utility, it actually helps monetize the equipment in that area of the utility so that they can actually pay for upgrades in other areas and also monetize their equipment to keep the rates actually lower in this particular case. because of the energy that's stranded in this particular area. I'm happy to take any questions that anybody would have for me.
All right. Well, maybe we will. Is there any members of the committee that, Mr. Edison?
Then, through you, Chair, to Katie, the noise assessment that was done, it said that the homes were missed in that area?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So they did miss the homes that are closest to the Rona, and picked up homes that are about just over 400 meters away on the other side of the Trent River as the closest homes. But we have received an updated noise study this week that does include now the homes that are closest to Rona, which would be closest to this site.
So the homes that are on the other side of the Trent River, were they notified that there was an assessment being done, noise assessment being done?
They would not have been notified of the noise assessment study being done, no.
Are there other questions? Oh, Mr. Mayor?
Interesting. Why would they not have been notified? Why? I just want to go back and anything we do, there's a certain amount of risk and a certain amount of challenges, and staff do their best to make sure that they look at these and give us the information that we require to make a assessment and a judgment and either vote yes or no. So over the years that I've been here, I have to acknowledge the staff's ability to do that and to do it well, and I appreciate that. Anything that with this type of business, anything we do, there's a certain amount of risk. Yes, there is, maybe more so than we ever realized. So we have to do our due diligence and make sure that we're making the right decision to the best of our ability. And if something comes up, I think it's staff will certainly get that to us, and we'll continue with the process. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Brown was next. You want to finish your thought from earlier, or you got another thought?
No, I want to continue with the mayor's thought there. It's a great idea. I love the idea of bringing industry into our city. When you're doing your assessments, the reason I'm curious about this is because if you see 496 across the river, it's my house. Like, if somebody's going to be doing an assessment around my house or in my area, I think it's only fair that we should be notified. No, Brian?
Mr. Jardine would like to respond, so go ahead.
Yeah, to you, Mr. Chair. So when an exercise like a noise study is done, it's obviously done from the source, and then they basically measure the noise. They do look at all of the sensitive land uses, but you're not notified. There's no activity on your property as part of the assessment. They're just assessing that there's a sensitive land use there. Obviously, people are notified through the planning application, but not through an assessment. Otherwise, every time we did an assessment on any type of potential impact, you'd be knocking on doors all day long. So that's not a requirement for them to notify that they're just measuring from this site what the noise exposure would be, but measuring it against a sensitive land use, which would be the residential uses. But people are not notified of that, no.
Thanks, Brian. It's just that in the middle of the night, if I hear a generator starting up, I'd be curious as to, unless I was notified that there was something going on, if I wasn't here to find this out, I wouldn't know that there's new industry going on across the river from me. And I appreciate it. There's a lot of noise. There's transports running 24/7 across the river there, and it's a busy street over there, and I appreciate that. But if there's going to be potential for more noise or impact to the people that live in the area, I think they should be better informed if there's a potential for it.
All right.
Go ahead.
Well, I guess we'll just keep talking and see what happens. Mr. Brown, you wanted to chime in?
The discussion between water-cooled and air-cooled systems, I don't think we quite covered off. What happens if everything gets approved and we're happy that it's an air-cooled system? What mechanism do we have in place that would stop them from, say, we have a summer like we did last summer where almost 60 degrees of just blistering heat. Or what stops them from saying, oh, I'm just going to put a water cooled system in? What mechanisms do we have in place for that?
Mr. Jardine?
To you, Mr. Chair. So, first step would be obviously through a building permit process that would still have to happen, and we would see at that point in time what type of machinery and plant was being installed. But more importantly, if somebody was to then try and change the system, particularly for water, they're going to have to get the water from somewhere. There's really only in this location, probably one source, and that's from the city. So they would have to make an application to the city for a huge amount of water capacity to run a new cooling system. So the city would be aware at that point. It couldn't just happen. The only other way would be to potentially pull from the river. Again, the city would be involved through source water protection. They would require permits to take water from the ministry. Everybody would be aware. It wouldn't just be something they could change through the change of machinery.
I figured there was a little more to it. Just wanted to kind of calm the heels before they even got revved up.
Mr. Bouchard, you would like to respond?
Yeah, that'd be great. In regards to the houses across the river, I just want you to know, because like one of you live there, we asked in an abundance of caution to make a broad distance actually higher than what should be provincially asked for in regards to the sound. And so I believe your house across the river is 37 dB, a worst case scenario, which is not really audible. Yeah. In regards to water, we are happy to put a covenant on the property that we could not do water cool, because we just won't, we're not doing it at all anywhere in the country. And we don't want to do that, because I personally don't believe in using drinking water to cool a data center.
Well, we can include that in the notes then.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, go
My
ahead, Mr.
point,
Mayor.
Mr. Chair, is that I think it's much better to be proactive than reactive. And that's where I'm coming from with, the water cooled and so on. So let's make sure we do our due diligence and get it right the first time.
Thanks. Mr. Card?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have some comments and then maybe a question for Mr. Bouchard. So, yeah, I think it's an important, valuable conversation. I think with any emerging technology, the skepticism is certainly warranted. I think because it's an emerging industry and technology, I think that's also why, we can't afford to do a blanket no or kind of close possibilities. So it's a tightrope that we walk. I think that some of just looking at it with the 8 megawatts, 8,000 kilowatt size, definitely on the moderate size for a data center, from what I can see. Definitely not a large or a super cluster, certainly, that I know has gotten a lot of negative press attention in the States, and some of the impacts of, 10 times, 20, 30, 50 times the scale you can imagine. I think that some of the positives in looking at the report, it is an adaptive reuse of this facility, a dormant facility with the covenant. So certainly hampers utilization possibilities. So I think that that's certainly very good. Obviously, we've talked about the dry cooling versus the draw on the water infrastructure, which would be probably pretty substantial. Talked about the noise assessment already. I think the fact that Lower Trent, in terms of negatives, that they can't support the application yet, I think as this moves through, be curious to hear, what they have to say about the topographic base plan, if that ends up getting produced, and if that conforms with the provincial policy statement. Also, the utility data as well. I know the intent is the dry cooling, but I would still be curious to see the water and wastewater demands that they will estimate. I think that's very important. I think ultimately probably the biggest negative is the poor employment to resource ratio that I think one of the public members, Mr. Warham, mentioned, that 14 full-time jobs, the electricity to run thousands and thousands of houses. There's an opportunity cost there that has to be weighed. I think the same in the reverse sense of letting the facility stay dormant with restrictive covenants. So I think these are the things that we have to wrestle with. For Mr. Bouchard, I'm just curious if you can talk about the stranded energy and how hydro gives you the okay for the 8 megawatt capacity draw, and just how that process works, because I know we've touched on a couple, like the power, the water, and the noise seem to be the 3 keys, I think, for the public. So if we're saying there's not going to be a water draw, there seems to be confidence in the noise study. I'm sure we'll take a look at that, talk about it more in the future. But in terms of the energy, I think that no one is going to be excited about 14 full-time jobs, but we're potentially over the next 10, 25 years, I know Ontario, Bay of Quinte in Ontario, huge growing power needs. So can you talk about how hydro allocate this to you and the stranded power and some of the dynamics there, and what effects can be of a project this size on consumer, commercial, industrial pricing going forward?
Yeah, very good question. And now, you asked me 2 questions that I'd like to answer if I could. First of all, in regards to utility use, the only water and a utility we'd use would be for the bathrooms and the kitchen. And so there isn't a one tank that's filled once, and that is an emergency tank if the air cooling goes down for some reason, and then heat is dissipated into a closed tank, and that's just filled once. And it takes about 4 hours to fill it. So the water use in the sewer is bathrooms and a kitchen. So that's your utility use for that. In regards to power, very good question, because there's actually a bit of stranded power in your region, particularly because of the shutdown of the pulp mill. There's about another 25 megawatts beyond this amount that is sitting there unused by the utility, and then I think there's about another actually 10 more megawatts that is sitting there in the substation that is being unused. So what does that mean? In regards to the 8 megawatts that they've assigned to us, they've done a balancing study for future customers and everything. And so with that power that is not being used, with somebody like us who comes in and gives a base load to the utility for 90% of the day, that means for them that they'll receive about $6.3 million annually in revenue that they wouldn't have got before. So now, in this case, they'll get that revenue, and then they can use that for, a whole bunch of things on their end in regards to utility upgrades and everything that they have to do. So it actually, in regards to the profitability of Hydro One in this case, helps their base case. Does that help answer your question?
It does. I don't want to ask too many follow-ups, but just briefly, why is that power not being moved to higher need usage areas? Why is there such thing as stranded power there?
Yeah, so that's a good question. And so because there's certain transmission lines that go through and they can only move so much power back and forth. And so when certain transmission lines are maximized, then they can't push more through it. And so that ends up with some areas that end up having excess power that can't move to another location because the power line is full. And so that's why they're in Ontario and across the country, there's certain pockets where doing these little micro data centers make a lot of sense because you're placing them in spots where that utility is not being fully utilized. And so that is part of our planning process actually for these micro data centers that we're placing across the country as part of the National Sovereign Data Program from the federal government through a major utility. We specifically look for spots like this where there's pockets of energy that aren't being fully utilized, but still having extra energy for the community for instance, the 25 megawatts that's sitting at the old mill site, for a lot of potential growth.
Thank you. Yes, and I do. Again, just I think that the skepticism is really important, but I've heard so many people talk about, and you mentioned the word sovereign there, which is really interesting because I remember growing up here, future wars will be fought over water. That was like a really common saying, and now I hear everyone saying that future conflict and economic fortunes will be won or lost over compute power. So I can't understand the federal government wanting to prioritize a provincial government that within Canadian borders that there is enough capacity to fulfill our national needs. I do understand that point, but thank you for answering.
All right, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, just go back to when we amalgamated in '97. We did have areas in the city that did not have the required power that they needed. And I'll give you an example. Right by the roundabout at number 2 and 33, or Stockdale Road and 33. Yeah, that was an area there that was under service. So as a result of the amalgamation, we increased the amount of hydro available in certain areas. Still not, I guess you'd say, overburdening our own hydro sources and systems. But we had to do work on those, and we haven't. I don't remember. I remember one time we had one shortage of power, but I can't remember having any others since then after the work that we did. So yes, there are differences and there will be challenges, but hydro and I think if we need to, we can go to CEO Angelo, because I'm trying to think of some additional power that we have in our industrial park over by our operations center. Thank you.
Mr. Costivos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just find that there's too many uncertainties before we pass this. From the Economic Development Department, they said they would like to further gather information with the province, get some more reports. Others say there's a risk management plan that may be required. I stress the word may. And again, back to the other point, there are still no reports. And finally, with Lower Trent, technical information would be required. So I would like all of these uncertainties to be answered before we vote yes or no on this. I understand that it is an opportunity for Quinte West to get a new development. However, also in the report, there's just too few jobs for the environmental footprint on the city.
Well, luckily, we're not voting on this tonight, so.
I understand,
Lots
but
of time
some of
for
these
that.
questions should be answered before it even moves forward.
Well, that's why we're here. Mr. Jardine, you'd like to comment?
Yes, to you, Mr. Chair, Councillor Costivos and the rest of the committee. So yes, this is here for information tonight. Some of the items that Councillor raised will have to be refined, and more information before we bring back a recommendation in those that you listed. But I also wanted to make the point in terms of the assessment and comments around unknowns, etc. From the perspective of the process that we run, we have to review this based on the information that we can gain, and not on information that nobody is aware of. This is definitely an emerging industry, but it is an industry. We've reviewed how other municipalities are dealing with this. Most are recognising that they do have a place, and the most appropriate place is within industrial parks and within an industrial setting for all of the reasons that we've mentioned. But I think I would caution that when we review it, when it comes to things like environmental impact, number of jobs, etc., you've got to be fair that we are also looking at it in relation to how we assess any other form of industrial use. I would use the example of warehousing. Warehousing takes up massive areas of land and employs very, very few people, and yet we have significant warehousing industries within our municipality, and they don't even generate this type of conversation. So when we bring back our report to the committee, we will assess it based on the same parameters that we would assess any other form of industrial use. Any other form of industrial use will have, depending on the type of industrial use, will have obviously impacts that we're all aware of. They will use different forms of power, different level of services. They will all be assessed as to whether the capacity is available. Some industries have emissions that we have to look at. Some are noise emissions. Some are other forms of pollution. But those will be the basis of our review. There definitely is a lot of press. We've all seen a lot of reports, mostly from the States or from further west in Canada, on impacts of data centres. But when you really boil it all down, it comes back to the physical things that we've talked about this evening: noise, type of cooling, water usage, and power. So those are the things that we are going to focus on, and also you've got to be conscious of the scale as well. This type of data center is small in relation to some of these other enterprises that are making the news. So just want to make sure that the committee is clear that yes, more information to come. More assessment to be done before we bring back this, some of which we've talked about, but we will be assessing this the same way that we assess any other form of industrial use. We will not be assessing this on unknowns. Unless there's another level of direction from committee and or council that we should be dealing with data centres in a very, very different way than we deal with other industrial uses. But I haven't heard, in all of the research that we've done, even to get to this point, I haven't heard any other forms of potential impact for this form of data centre that would warrant a further review beyond the things that we're reviewing right now. Thank you.
All right. Oh, Mr. Card has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Director Jardine. Past the request of the applicant to add the definition of the data center to the zoning bylaw, is there any other forward steps on this subject, clarifying parameters or other staff work that you think is required in terms of being proactive and not reactive to applications, but being proactive if this is, the canary in the coal mine, so to speak? Is there anything further, or?
That's a good question. I don't have enough information to really answer that, because again, you get back to a question around, and I think maybe the speakers kind of spoke to this as well. Is there a cumulative impact that we are all not aware of, right? Or somehow it has to be assessed differently? Again, I think I would refer back to if we were talking about other forms of industrial use. Are we having the same conversation on cumulative impact on other forms of industrial use? The answer quite simply is no. We're grabbing as much industrial and employment use as we can get our hands on, just the same as every other municipality. This is a different form of that, and it's new. So I'm not aware of a higher level review that needs to be done. Definitely there's a process for that if council decided to send us in that direction. But again, all of the research that we've done to this point that we've been able to do, it all boils down, as I said, to exactly the same technical issues that we've talked about this evening: noise, other forms of emissions, power and water usage. Those are the things. And generally municipalities are getting more and more comfortable with an industrial setting as being the best place for them. Now, granted, all industrial settings are not created equal, and so we have to look very carefully at how an industrial area is located in terms of its proximity to sensitive land uses or something like that, because some might be more greenfield, some might be more located within closer proximity to residential. So that being said, industrial settings seems to be where most municipalities are going with this type of use.
Okay, thanks. Does anybody else have any questions? Mr. Bouchard, did you want to respond in any way?
Well, just, thank you for considering this application. And, I'm open for anybody to reach out to me to ask questions and if they need more understanding in regards to this micro data center. And when I say micro, it's because a lot of the data centers that we're hearing about that are problematic are in the 100, 200, 300 megawatt range in areas where they're just not appropriate, in my opinion. And, rightfully, the blowback from the communities that they're trying to do stuff in and the enormous amount of water usage that they're taking out of aquifers in some of the places in the United States, these are completely different animals than what we're talking about here. And then the economic impact, even though it might be 14 jobs, there's a multiplying factor that is quite large on these data centers. And over a 20-year span, it'll be a $190 million impact from this little project. When I say little, in regards to the footprint that it provides, but the investment into this building would be $100 million. And so, even though they might use a bit of power, the economic impact overall that they provide to the local economy, the province, and the federal government is very substantial.
All right. Well, I just have one question, and I know very little about this AI stuff. I'm even surprised I remember how to say it. So how would your company be set up? You move in there in a perfect world and everything is a giddy up and go. Where's there room for growth at this location, or does your company grow in a different way that I don't imagine yet?
Yeah, so they just take this kind of concept and they have it in multiple places across the country. And so it's the client is a national telecom for this that you would all know. And so we have found that doing these more modest micro data centers, technology centers, we like to call them, because it's not only AI that is going on inside of these. This is actually data storage that actually goes in this, which, banks utilize, governments utilize, of all kinds, businesses. So it's just not AI inference. It's actually anything to do with data that is flowing through these micro data centers. And the important part is, and it was brought up earlier in the conversation, is we need to have this data storage in our nation. What has happened in the last year and a half with what's going on with our neighbors, I think it's vital that we have this data storage and this data inference in our country. And we might not like some of the stuff that AI is doing in regards to maybe some of the questions we're still trying to feel out in regards to its impact on society. But we need to have that compute ability in our country if we're going to compete. It's very, 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 very critical. And so we have tried to devise ways where we can have these micro data centers that have the absolute minimal impact as possible. And I think we have a great design here which can do that.
All right. Well, I'm glad you made those comments, because I think you're right that Canada should be doing a lot more to protect its information. So basically you're saying if this location comes to fruition and your client is super happy with how things are going, they may find another spot within Quinte West and develop a different location. So there wouldn't necessarily have to be any expansion of this facility. They would just find a different spot and put that to use. I guess that's
Right.
how I understand it.
You're totally correct. This site would be at its maximum capacity, and there would be no expansion on this site. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. So with that, if nobody else has anything else to add, Your comments regarding the applications and staff reports have been recorded and will be forwarded to the members of council together with the minutes of this meeting. Council will make a decision to approve or refuse the stated application at the regulatory scheduled council meeting of Wednesday, July the 15th, 2026. Thanks very much for your attendance, Mr. Bouchard. We will continue on with the meeting. So the next thing on the agenda is public input. Is there any public input? Nope, the public is leaving. Thanks for coming out. So that ends that. We don't have any presentations. We don't have any delegations. We've already done all our decision items. Printed information. So the printed information I read was the monthly planning and development reports. Can I get a motion for the planning and development reports? So I got Mr. McHugh and Mr. Card. Any questions regarding the monthly planning and development reports? Seeing none, can I get a show of hands that everybody really loves the reports done by staff? Awesome, thank you so much. So we got that done. Is there any request for information from the committee of staff at this time? They've got all these beautiful minds here ready to take your questions.
Mr. Chair, through you, I think we owe thanks to staff for the work you've done to present the information to us this evening. And I'll just reference, a risk in life. I think I've told you many times, I sprayed an orchard for 30 years. I used lead, arsenic, DDT, and mercury. And on the other end of this table, right over there, the guy with the white hair and the beard, he worked in, where is it? What was that place called? Darlington or Pickering or? Yeah. So, he's lucky he's alive because, the risk that he had, there was several risks. One was his driving and number two was the work. So, thank you. Thank you very much, staff, for presenting the information to us, and we'll certainly keep going.
Which is why I was in the insurance business for so much. Underwriting risk. Such fun. All right then. So I guess I just need a motion to adjourn the meeting then. So we got Mr. Edison and Mr. McHugh. Show of hands that that's the end of it. And everybody can go home now. Great work.
Just look at me.